My name is Emily. I am 24 years old. For many years, I did not feel good about myself. I finished school, but I did not go to college. I looked for a job, but most places said no. I stayed at home for a long time. Some people said I was lazy, but I was not. I just did not know where to begin. One day, my brother told me about a job. His friend worked at an office. The company needed an assistant. I did not know much about computers. I was scared to try, but my brother told me, "Just go. Do your best." So I went for the interview. The office was quiet and clean. The people looked busy. I waited in the hall. After a few minutes, a man came out. He was tall and wore glasses. He looked kind. "Hello," he said. "I'm David. Please come in." I followed him into a small room. He looked at my paper. It was short. I only had one job before. It was at a food shop, but I left after 2 months. I thought he would say no, but he just smiled and asked, "Are you ready to learn?" I said yes. My hands were cold and I was shaking a little. "You can start next Monday," he said. I was shocked. I asked, "Really?" He laughed and said, "Yes. We all start somewhere." My first day at the job was not easy. I did not understand many things. I forgot names. I made some small mistakes. My hands moved too slow. I was too shy to ask for help. At lunch, I sat alone at my desk. I thought I would not last 1 week. But Mr. David was different. He walked past my desk and said, "You are doing fine. It takes time." I looked up at him. No one had said those words to me before. Not at school. Not at home. After 2 weeks, he gave me a small task. I had to check a list on the computer. I did not know how to do it. I made a mistake and changed the wrong line. I wanted to cry. I thought he would be angry, but Mr. David called me to his office. He pointed at the screen. "It's okay," he said. "Let's fix it together." He showed me what to do. He did not shout. He did not look upset. I felt warm inside. For the first time, I did not feel stupid. I worked hard every day. I came early. I stayed late. I asked more questions. He gave me more tasks. He always said thank you. His words made me feel strong. I wanted to do better, not for him, but for myself. After 3 months, I started to feel different. I smiled more. I walked with my head up. I could finish my work on time. I helped new workers find things. One day he asked me to make a report. I did not know how. But he said, "I believe you can." I stayed late that day. I searched and typed and checked everything twice. The next morning, I gave him the report. My hands were shaking. He looked at it and said, "Good work." I smiled all day. It was just 2 words, but they meant the world to me. Some people in the office talked fast and laughed a lot. I still felt shy around them. I did not know what to say, but I was not afraid of Mr. David. He spoke in a calm voice. He looked people in the eye. He never made me feel small. One afternoon, he asked if I could come to a team meeting. I was quiet in the room. I just listened. But after the meeting, he said, "Your job matters. You help the team, even if you don't see it." I held those words close to my heart. At home, my parents saw the change. "You look happy," my mother said. I told her about the office, about Mr. David. She smiled and said, "You needed someone to believe in you." Week by week, I grew more confident. I stopped saying sorry all the time. I learned to ask when I didn't know. I learned to fix my own mistakes. One day, I was alone at the front desk. A client came in and asked hard questions. I answered them all. Later, Mr. David said, "You handled that very well." I went home and cried, but it was not from sadness. It was something else, something good. Mr. David never talked about his own life, but he always made time for his team. He remembered birthdays. He asked about your weekend. He gave advice, but only if you asked. He was the kind of boss that made you want to work harder. After 6 months, he asked me to join a new project. It was about finding ways to help the team work better. I did not know why he picked me. I was not smart like the others. I did not have a degree. I told him that. But he looked at me and said, "You care. That's rare." That night, I could not sleep. I thought about those words over and over again. I never thought I had something special. Now, I wanted to find out what I could really do. One day, he showed me a file and said, "Can you try this?" It was a planning job. It looked hard, but I said yes. I made a plan. Then I changed it. Then I changed it again. I was scared it was not good enough, but I gave it to him. He read it and said, "I like this. Let's try your way." I did not know what to say. I just nodded. After he left, I smiled to myself. That smile stayed with me for a long time. At the end of the year, the company had a small party. They gave awards to some workers. I did not expect anything. I was just happy to be there. Then they said my name. I walked to the front. Mr. David was waiting with a small box. "For your hard work and growth," he said. People clapped. I looked at him. He smiled and said, "I told you. You could do it." I held the box close. I did not care what was inside. I cared about the moment. I cared about what it meant. I was not the shy girl from before. I was still learning, but I had come far. I knew that now. Before I share the rest of my story, I need to know, where are you listening from? Knowing someone hears me, understands me, gives me strength. The next week at work felt different. People smiled at me more. Some said, "Good job at the party." Others asked for my help. I did not feel small anymore. I was part of the team now. I liked the feeling. Mr. David gave me more tasks. Some were hard, but I tried my best. When I didn't know something, I asked. When I made a mistake, I fixed it. I did not feel scared to try. I knew he believed in me. One morning, he called me into his office. He said, "We're starting a new project. I want you to help." I was surprised. I asked, "Me?" He nodded and smiled. "Yes, you. You know this work. You care. And I trust you." The project was to help the office run better. I had to check what people needed and write a list of ideas. I asked the team questions. I listened to them. Some people were quiet at first, but then they talked. I wrote everything down. Every Friday, I showed my notes to Mr. David. He gave feedback, but he never made me feel bad. He said, "You see things other people miss." That made me proud. One day, I stayed late to finish a report. The office was quiet. It was dark outside. Mr. David came by and saw me still working. "You should go home," he said. I smiled and said, "Almost done." He looked at the paper and said, "You've come far, Emily. I'm proud of you." No one had said that to me before. Not like that. Not in a real way. The next week, he asked me to help train a new worker. Her name was Anna. She was shy, like I used to be. She sat at her desk and didn't talk much. I remembered how that felt. I walked over and said, "Hi, I'm Emily. If you need help, I'm here." She smiled a little and said, "Thank you." I showed her how to do small tasks. I told her it was okay to make mistakes. "I made a lot," I said. She laughed. We started to talk more. She asked questions. I helped her when she felt lost. She said, "You're kind." That made me happy. I told Mr. David that Anna was doing well. He said, "She's lucky to have you." I felt proud again. Later that month, something changed in the office. Mr. David looked tired. He worked long hours. He smiled less. One day I asked, "Are you okay?" He said, "Just busy." But I could see it in his eyes. Something was not right. A few days later, he was not at his desk. His door was closed. I heard from another team member that he had to take a short break. "Just a few days," they said. "He's fine." Without him, the office felt strange. People worked, but the mood was different. I missed his calm voice and his quiet support. I missed his small reminders like, "You're doing great," or "Thank you for that." During the team meeting, someone asked, "Who will lead the project now?" My heart beat faster. I waited to hear a name. Then the manager said, "Emily can take care of it until Mr. David returns." I was shocked. Me? Lead the project? I looked around. People were watching me. Some smiled. Some just waited. I took a deep breath and said, "Okay, I'll do my best." That night, I could not sleep. I walked around my room. I looked at the files again and again. I was scared. What if I failed? What if I made a big mistake? But then I thought about Mr. David. I thought about his words. You care. That's rare. I held on to that. The next day, I came early. I made a plan. I wrote a list of goals. I sent messages to the team. I tried to speak clearly. I checked on Anna too. She said, "You're good at this." I worked hard all week. I stayed calm even when things went wrong. When someone was upset, I listened. When a file was missing, I helped find it. I was tired, but I was also proud. I was not perfect, but I was strong now. One day, Mr. David came back. He walked in during the afternoon. He looked better. He smiled when he saw me. "I heard good things," he said. I smiled back. "We missed you." He sat down at his desk. After some time, he called me into his office. He said, "Thank you for leading the team." I said, "It was not easy." He nodded and said, "But you did it." Then he said something I will never forget. "You are not the same person who came in on the first day. You've grown. And now, others look up to you." I did not know what to say. My eyes felt warm. I looked down and said, "It's because you gave me a chance." He said, "You took the chance. That's the part that matters." The next week, something even bigger happened. The company was opening a new department. They needed someone to help manage the team. Mr. David called me to his office again. He said, "I want you to be part of it." I was quiet for a moment. "Do you think I can do it?" I asked. He looked at me and said, "I know you can." That night, I told my parents. My mother hugged me and said, "I'm proud of you." My father said, "You earned it." At work, I packed my things and moved to the new room. It felt strange at first, but I was ready. I sat at my new desk and took a deep breath. Anna came by and said, "Good luck." I smiled and said, "Thank you." Later, Mr. David walked past. He stopped at the door and said, "You'll do great here." I looked at him and said, "Because you believed in me." He smiled and said, "Now it's your turn to believe in others." I knew he was right. My life had changed, but it did not happen by magic. It happened because one person gave me trust, and I took that trust and grew from it. The new team started small. We had just 5 people. Some were older than me. One was even older than my dad. One girl had just started her first job. I felt a little nervous at first. I had never led a team before. I did not know how to be a leader, but I remembered how Mr. David spoke to me. He never used big words. He always listened. He smiled when you did something right. He gave help without making you feel weak. I wanted to do the same. I tried to start each day with a smile. I walked around the room and said good morning to everyone. At first, they looked surprised, but after a few days, they smiled back. Some even asked how I was doing. I kept things simple. I gave small tasks. I asked questions and listened. I checked if people needed help. I said thank you every day. I learned that small words can make big changes. The older man on the team, Mr. Clark, said, "You're young to be a team leader." I smiled and said, "Yes, but I'm still learning too." He looked at me for a moment, then nodded. "All right then. Let's all learn together." That made me feel good. He did not say it in a mean way. He was just honest. But he gave me a chance. The new girl was named Lucy. She was quiet and did not speak much. She always looked down at her screen. I could see myself in her. I remembered how I used to feel, nervous, lost, and scared of doing something wrong. I didn't want her to feel alone. One day, I walked over and said, "Hi, Lucy. If you have any questions, just ask me. I can help." She looked up and gave a small smile. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was soft, like mine used to be. Later that week, she made a mistake in a file. She sent the wrong numbers to another office. She looked upset. I told her, "It's okay. We all make mistakes. Let's fix it together." We worked on it side by side. It took some time, but we fixed it. I could see her relax after that. She said, "I was so scared. I thought I'd be in trouble." I said, "That's how I felt too. But we learn and grow." The days went by quickly. The team started working better together. I saw people helping each other without being asked. I saw smiles during lunch breaks. One person even brought snacks for the team. I felt proud. I was not just doing the work. I was helping to build something. One day, Mr. David came to visit our floor. He looked around and smiled. "This space feels good," he said. We walked together for a bit. He asked how the team was doing. I told him, "They're helping each other. They work well together." He nodded and said, "That means you're doing your job right." Then he paused and said something I didn't expect. "I'm moving to another office next month." I stopped walking and looked at him. "You're leaving?" I asked. He said, "Yes. It's a new role in another city. I'll be helping a bigger team." My heart felt heavy. Didn't want him to go, but I didn't want to be selfish either. "You'll be great," I said. He smiled. "And so will you. You don't need me here anymore. You've grown into a leader." I wanted to say something, but the words didn't come, so I just nodded. The next few weeks went by fast. Mr. David helped train his replacement. Her name was Sarah. She was kind and smart. She asked lots of questions and wrote notes in a small book. She came to see our team often. I liked her. On Mr. David's last day, we had a small lunch in the break room. Someone brought cake. We all gave him a card. It was full of thank you messages. When it was my turn to speak, I stood up and said, "You helped me grow. You believed in me when no one else did. I'll never forget that." His eyes looked warm, and he smiled. "That means more than you know," he said. After lunch, he walked over and said goodbye. "Keep going, Emily," he said. "You have what it takes." Then he was gone. That evening, I sat at my desk. The room was quiet. I looked at the space he used to stand in. I missed him already, but I was not scared. I felt strong. I knew I could do this. In the next few months, I worked harder than ever. I helped train more new workers. I gave small talks during meetings. I started to share ideas with Sarah, and she listened. She trusted me, just like Mr. David did. Anna was now one of our best team members. One day she stayed after work and said, "I want to grow like you did." I looked at her and smiled. "You will. Just keep trying." I gave her a small task with more responsibility. She did great. Lucy also changed. She asked more questions and even helped others. I watched her teach a new worker how to use the printer. I felt proud. At home, my parents were happy too. My mother said, "You laugh more now." My father said, "You're not that quiet girl anymore." I told them, "Work has changed me." But I knew the truth. It was not just work. It was trust. It was Mr. David. Sometimes I sent him updates by email. "Lucy is doing well," I wrote once. "Anna is ready for more work." He always replied with short but kind words. "Proud of you," he said. "Keep leading." Then one rainy morning, a new woman joined the office. Her name was Grace. She wore a big coat and looked around with wide eyes. She sat at her desk alone. I watched her for a few minutes. She looked just like I had looked, unsure and quiet. I walked over and said, "Hi, I'm Emily. Let me know if you need help." She looked up and gave a small, tired smile. "Thanks," she said. That moment felt important. I had been that girl once. Now, I was someone who others looked to. I helped them grow. I gave them courage. And I believed in them, just like someone once believed in me. We all go through hard times, but stories like this can help us feel seen. Thank you for watching, and come back for more real moments. My name is Lena. I am 26 years old. I grew up in the slums, where people are very poor. Our homes were made of thin walls and old roofs. There were always loud sounds, dusty roads, and too many people in one room. Some days we had no water. Some nights we slept without food. But I learned how to live with little. I lived with my uncle and his wife. They had 3 children, and I helped take care of them. I cleaned, cooked, and stayed quiet. I often looked at the sky and wished for a better life. After school, I did not go to college. We had no money. I worked at a local diner. I cleaned tables, washed dishes, and served food. The pay was low, but I was happy. I liked talking to customers. Some of them came every day. They knew my name. They smiled when I brought them coffee. Life was not easy, but I was doing my best. One day, my uncle said I had to leave. He said his house was too full. I packed my bag, said nothing, and walked away. I had no home now. I slept on a friend's sofa for a few weeks, but I knew I could not stay there long. I needed a job. I needed a place of my own. So I took a bus to the city. It was loud and big. So many lights. So many people. I was scared, but I had no choice. In the city, I walked from street to street. I asked for work at shops and hotels. Some people said no. Some did not even look at me. Then, one evening, I saw a small hotel with a paper sign on the door. It said, "Cleaner needed. Night shift." I walked in and asked for the manager. A tall man came. His name was Mr. Harris. He looked serious. He asked me a few questions and said, "You can start tomorrow." I was happy. The job was not easy, but I was thankful. I worked from 10 at night to 6 in the morning. I cleaned floors, washed windows, and emptied trash. The hotel gave me a small room in the basement. It had one bed, one fan, and a table. It was not nice, but it was mine. I kept it clean. I was careful. I followed the rules. I never spoke unless someone spoke to me. Most nights were quiet. I worked alone. I listened to the soft sound of the city outside. I moved from room to room with my cart and my mop. The guests were already sleeping. I never went into rooms unless they were empty. I kept my head down. Mr. Harris told me to stay in my place. I did what I was told. But one night, everything changed. It was a cold night. I was cleaning the hallway on the first floor. Suddenly, I smelled something strange. It was like smoke. I stopped and looked around. The smell got stronger. I ran to the front desk. No one was there. I looked up the stairs and saw a thin line of smoke coming down. I dropped my mop and ran upstairs. I knocked on doors. I shouted, "Fire! Wake up! Get out!" Some people opened their doors. Their faces were full of fear. One woman was old and could not walk. Well, I held her hand and helped her down the stairs. I went back up to check more rooms. The smoke was thick now. My eyes burned. I could not breathe well. Soon the fire trucks came. The police came too. They told everyone to move back. The fire was big. It started in a room on the second floor. They worked for hours to stop it. In the end, one man did not survive. He was a guest in the hotel. They found him in his room. His door was closed. His windows were black with smoke. I sat on the curb outside the hotel. My hands were shaking. My uniform was dirty. My hair smelled like smoke. A police officer came to me. He asked me what I saw. I told him everything. I said I was cleaning the first floor. I said I smelled the smoke. I said I helped people get out. He wrote in his notebook. He looked at me for a long time. Then another officer came. They spoke in low voices. They asked more questions. I said the same things again. I was tired, but I answered. I did not lie. I had no reason to lie. The next morning, I returned to the hotel. Mr. Harris was standing at the front door. He looked angry. He said, "The police want to speak with you again." I was confused. Why? I asked. He didn't answer. He walked away. 2 officers came soon after. They took me back to the station. At the station, they asked me the same questions again. Then they showed me pictures. They said the fire started in a heater. They said my fingerprints were on it. I told them I cleaned that room earlier in the day. Of course my prints were there. They said no other staff was in the hotel. They said I was the only one who could have started it. I felt sick. No, I said. I helped people. I did not start the fire. But they did not believe me. They told me to sign a paper. I said I wanted a lawyer. They gave me a man who looked tired. He said nothing helpful. He just told me to stay calm. But I could not stay calm. A few weeks later, I stood in a courtroom. I wore clean clothes, but I felt dirty inside. I looked at the judge. I looked at the people in the room. No one knew me. No one believed me. Mr. Harris said bad things about me. He said I was not careful. He said I had a bad attitude. That was not true. I always followed the rules. But his words were louder than mine. The court said I was guilty. They said I started the fire. They said I killed a man. I cried. I tried to speak, but no one listened. I was sent to prison for 10 years. I was only 26. The prison was cold. The walls were gray. The lights were always on. The food was dry. The bed was hard. I had a small room with a toilet and a chair. The other women did not talk to me at first. I stayed quiet. I cried at night. I missed my old life. I missed my freedom. One day, I found a library inside the prison. It was small. The books were old. Some had missing pages. But I picked one up and started reading. Slowly, the words helped me. I started writing too. I wrote in a notebook every day. I wrote about the fire. I wrote about the hotel. I wrote about the truth. Writing helped me stay strong. I did not want to lose myself. I was not a criminal. I was not a liar. I was still Lena. I held on to that truth with all I had. Before I share the rest of my story, I need to know, where are you listening from? Knowing someone hears me, understands me, gives me strength. Days in prison were slow. The hours felt long. Sometimes I sat on the floor and looked at the wall. The same wall. The same noise. The same cold air. Every morning we woke up at 5. A guard opened the door. We stood in line for food. The food was always the same. Dry bread, weak tea, cold rice. I ate in silence. The other women in prison had different stories. Some were angry, some were quiet, some cried at night. After a few weeks, a woman named Kate spoke to me again. As she said, "You're always writing. What do you write about?" I looked at her and said, "I write my story. I don't want to forget who I am." She smiled. She didn't ask more. But after that, she sat next to me during meals. I kept writing. I wrote about my childhood, the slum, the hotel job, the fire. I wrote about the man who died and how I tried to help others. I wrote about Mr. Harris and how he lied. I wrote about how no one believed me. Writing made me feel human again. Each word was like a step forward, like I was still walking, still alive. One day, a new woman came to the library. She wore different clothes. She was not a prisoner. She had glasses and a kind smile. Her name was Emily. She said she was a teacher. She came to help women read and write better. She spoke softly. She asked if anyone wanted help with writing. I raised my hand. We started with small things, sentences, questions, new words. She corrected my writing, but in a gentle way. "Lena, your story is powerful," she said one day. "Do you want to share it?" I looked down. "No one will care," I said. She looked at me and said, "I care." Her words stayed with me all night. Someone cared. Someone saw me. Emily came every week. She brought books and paper. She brought hope. I gave her my notebook to read. She read every page. She cried at one part. Then she looked up and said, "This isn't just a story. This is a truth that people should hear." I wanted to believe her, but it was hard. So many people had turned away from me. One day, Emily brought a man with her. He was not a teacher. He was a lawyer. His name was David. He was younger than I expected. He sat with me and said, "Emily showed me your writing. I want to help." I looked at him. "Why?" I asked. "I have nothing," he said. "Because I think you're telling the truth. And if you are, then this was a mistake. And mistakes must be fixed." I wanted to cry, but I didn't. I said, "I told the truth in court, and no one listened." He nodded. "I know. But sometimes it takes more time." He asked me many questions. He wrote down names, dates, details. He took my notebook. He said, This is our first step. Weeks passed. I waited. I wrote more. I kept going to the library. Emily still came. She smiled at me more now. She gave me a new pen and said, "Don't stop writing." I didn't. It was the only thing that made me feel free. One morning, the guard called my name. "Lena, you have a visitor." I was surprised. Visitors were rare. I walked to the small room. David was there with a folder in his hand. He said, "I checked the fire report again. Something is wrong." He opened the folder. The photos from the crime scene show a broken lamp. But in your story, you said the lamp was not broken when you cleaned the room. I nodded. Yes. I always check the lamps. He smiled. That means someone else broke it. After you left. He showed me another paper. Also, the fingerprints on the heater were mixed. Yours were there, yes. But someone else's too. They never tested that second set. I sat very still. So, I wasn't the only one. He said, "No. And we're going to ask the court to look again." I felt my heart beat fast. I did not speak. I just looked at him. He said, "It won't be fast, but it's a start." David worked for months. He came to see me many times. He asked for papers from the court. He spoke to the fire team. He asked questions no one asked before. He even found one old guest from that night. The guest said he saw someone leave the hotel around the time of the fire. A man. Not a woman. Not me. David found out more. The man who died in the fire was not alone in the hotel that night. His brother had come to visit him earlier that evening. The brother had a history of drug use and money problems. He left the hotel before the fire, but no one had looked into him. David found his name in a visitor log. The police had missed it. David showed all of this to the court. He asked for a new trial. At first, the judge said no. But David did not give up. He wrote again. He brought more facts. He pushed harder. After almost 1 year, the court finally said yes. They agreed to look at the case again. I was called to the courtroom once more. I wore the same simple clothes. I felt nervous, but I stood tall. David spoke for me. He showed everything he found. He told the court that my trial was too fast, too weak, and full of mistakes. He said, "Lena did not get a fair chance, and now we have proof." The judge listened. The room was quiet. I looked around. I saw Emily in the back row. She smiled at me. Her eyes were soft. Then the judge spoke. "We have found new facts. Lena's case will be opened again. She will be released while we continue the review." I did not understand the words at first. Then I heard David say, "You're going home." I felt my knees shake. I sat down. I put my hands over my face. I could not stop the tears. The guard opened the door for me. For the first time in years, I stepped outside. I looked up at the sky. It was blue and wide. The air felt fresh. The sun was warm. I stood there for a moment. I did not have a bag. I had no phone, no money, just one small notebook in my hand. But I felt free. No one was waiting for me. No car, no family, no friend. But I did not feel empty. I started walking. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to keep moving. I walked to a small park and sat on a bench. I watched people pass by. I watched kids laugh. I heard music in the distance. I closed my eyes and breathed in. After so many nights in a cold cell, I felt warm again. That evening, I found a small church. The door was open. I went inside and sat in the last row. It was quiet. I closed my eyes and said 2 words in my heart. Thank you. The next morning, I woke up early. I had slept on a bench in the church. My back hurt and my stomach was empty, but I felt calm. The city outside was loud again. Cars moved. People rushed. Life went on. I walked out of the church and into the street. I had no plan. I just started walking. I asked a man on the corner, "Is there a shop nearby?" He pointed with his hand and walked away. I followed the road and saw a small bakery. I looked inside. There was fresh bread on the shelves. My mouth felt dry. I stepped in and said, "Please, I have no money, but I'm hungry." The woman behind the counter looked at me. Her eyes were kind. She didn't ask questions. She gave me a small loaf of bread and a cup of tea. I sat down and ate. My hands shook. When I finished, I stood up and said, "Thank you. One day I will come back and pay you." She smiled and said, "You already did." By being kind. I left the shop with a soft heart. Her small act of care gave me hope. I walked for hours. I looked for places that might need help. Most people said no. Some didn't answer. Others looked at me like I didn't belong. I felt tired again. My shoes were old. My arms felt weak. But I did not stop. In the afternoon, I saw an old man cleaning a public park. He held a broom and moved slowly. I went near and said, "Do you need help?" He looked at me. His face was full of lines. He said, "You can sweep that side." He gave me a broom. I cleaned beside him for 3 hours. When we were done, he gave me a sandwich and a bottle of water. "You work hard," he said. "Come again tomorrow." And I did. Every day for the next few weeks, I came back. We cleaned together. He told small stories. Sometimes he laughed at his own jokes. I smiled too. I told him I had just come out of prison. I waited for him to walk away, but he didn't. He said, "We all carry something. I carry pain too." Then he patted my shoulder and said, "Don't stop." One morning, he saw me writing in my notebook during break. "What are you writing?" he asked. I said, "My story. It helps me stay calm. he said. The world needs more truth. Maybe you should speak it. I didn't understand at first. But then he took me to a friend of his. She was a teacher at a small center. The center helped people learn how to speak in front of others. She listened to my voice, then said, "Come next week. Tell your story to a small group." I was scared. My hands felt cold, but I said yes. That week, I wrote everything again. I read it many times. I was afraid I would forget. When the day came, I stood in front of 12 people. They looked at me and waited. I started to speak. My voice shook, but I kept going. I told them about the hotel, the fire, the trial. I told them about prison, about the notebook, and the kind people who helped me. When I finished, no one spoke. Then one woman started to clap. Then another. Soon, all of them were clapping. A man stood up and said, "You gave me hope." That moment changed me. I walked home with light in my chest. I was still poor. I still had no house. But I had something stronger, a voice. The teacher invited me to speak again, at a library, then at a school, then at a small hall in another town. Every time I told my story, people cried. People hugged me. Some gave me food or a place to stay for the night. I never asked, but they offered. Slowly, I began to feel like I had a life again. After one talk, a young woman came to me. She had a small bag and a notebook. "I'm a writer," she said. "I want to help you write your story, not just for talks, for the world." I said, "Why me?" She smiled and said, "Because the world needs truth, and your story can help others." We met many times, in cafes, in parks, in the library. She asked questions and wrote my answers. Page by page, we built the book. I read each line. Sometimes I cried. Sometimes I asked her to stop. But we kept going. We called it The Girl Who Was Blamed. A small publisher read the draft and said, "This must be printed." I held the first copy of the book in my hands. My name was on the cover. I didn't know what to say. I had no words. Just tears. I had lost everything once. And now I was holding something I made. The book was printed slowly. First, just a few hundred copies. Then more. People read it. They passed it to others. I got letters, messages. One woman wrote, "My brother is in prison. Your story helped him believe again." A man wrote, "I read your book. It changed how I see people." I was invited to more places, bigger rooms, more people. Some events had cameras and lights, but I stayed the same. I just told the truth. Every time I said, "I didn't do it, but I survived. And I'm still walking." One day, A group of people came to me after a talk. They said, "We want to start a program to help those who were wrongly blamed. Can you help?" I said yes. We started with small things: letters, visits, talks. Then we built a small center, a safe place, a place for people to write, speak, and heal. The center grew. I helped others tell their stories. I listened to people who felt forgotten. I told them, "You matter. You are not alone." And they believed me. Years passed. I still had the same old notebook, the one I wrote in during prison. I kept it safe. It reminded me of who I was. It reminded me of how far I had come. One afternoon, I returned to the bakery. The same woman was still there. I said, "You gave me bread when I had nothing." She looked at me and smiled. "I remember," she said. I handed her money. "This is for that day." She shook her head. "No," she said. "Just keep helping others." That night, I sat on my bed and opened my notebook. I wrote one last line. They blamed me for something I didn't do, but I found a way to live again. We all go through hard times, but stories like this can help us feel seen. Thank you for watching, and come back for more real moments.